keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling and flare. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, Nick.
Sorry, I think we're having a bit of a... Alright, I think we're on now.
Yeah.
Alright, cool, yeah, my internet's down, man.
Yep, are we on, though? Are we good?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Alright, cool. Yeah, sorry, man. My internet's down, my mic's not working correctly. The universe doesn't want me doing the show tonight, but I think we're good now.
Yeah, I'm doing my best here.
Alright, cool. So, yeah, we're gonna have a, did you do the intro yet?
No, just waiting on you.
Alright, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Sorry we're having a bit of technical difficulties, but you're on the Anti-Media Radio, here with Nick Burnaby on UCY.TV with my co-host, DB Schwartz. I don't know why, but they're like, my internet is just really bad today. And now I got a bunch of, alerts coming in, but, we're gonna talk a little bit about what went on this weekend with the United We Stand Fest and the news going on in Ukraine. I mean, let's look at the situation in Ukraine first, I guess, because it's the most pressing thing, in my opinion. But we just had these guys do this referendum yesterday in Ukraine, and immediately the government comes out, the U.S. government comes out and says, hey, what happened in Ukraine is not valid. 90% of the people voted to separate, or to be autonomous of the Western, establishment that's now running Ukraine. And our government immediately said, no, that is not valid. That's not a valid vote. That's democracy, but we don't accept that democracy. I mean, it's just so hypocritical.
Right, and this is the we can see it happening. Like, people I was talking to there while I was meeting a couple people, Baran from what the F, really, and everything like that, and talking to some other people there, is that they get the general idea that this is not going to be a Cold War. They're not shifting troops for just no reason. Like, they are literally like anticipating big things happening there, and as a precursor to a bigger, probably global conflict, and it all comes down to oil and trade. And everybody knows when an empire starts to break apart, it'll attack much like a wounded bear would when it's cornered. And the only problem is that our stuff is so sophisticated that on our way down, we could take everybody else with us, and that's something we can't allow as American citizens.
Yeah, and it's our responsibility, I guess you can say, to try to prevent this thing from happening, because unfortunately we're at the mercy, or we could be at the helm of the most powerful military that's ever existed in the history of humanity, right?
And the good thing is what we saw at the United We Stand Festival was that the people that are up there are very hopeful that there's already the shift that's happened, because open source for free energy is there. It's just people need to now get behind it and do it. And that was Foster Gamble when he came up there and said, this is a great time to be alive. As long as we can avoid a major war, we won't have another major war, because all the wars are energy, and energy is free. And it's so true. That paradigm could shift within this generation. We hope it does soon, because if they're allowed to go along with some plan where everybody fights everybody, think of the stuff that unleash. I mean, maybe billions of people will perish, and we just cannot allow that to happen in good conscience.
Yeah, and it was crazy, man, because everybody's talking about how everybody's starting to get to this point where we understand that the problem is that there's too many people that have too much power, and it's the exact same thing that's going on in Ukraine. There was a article I read today, and someone interviewed someone down on the ground. It came from somewhat of a mainstream source, but they had the excerpt right there, the quote from the guy, and this is basically what he said. We know that we don't want to deal with the West because the West is going to screw us economically. And we can't rely on Russia anymore because we've relied on them for a long time, and where has that gotten us? Nowhere. So we want to have a autonomous Eastern Ukraine where we have self-determination and we control our own economics, our own foreign dealings, and our own trade and all that stuff. And that's essentially what these people want, like the real people on the ground. Now, of course, the two people that are going to play out in the media, of course, is going to be the Russian-backed guys and the Western-backed guys, which we don't even call them Western-backed in the mainstream. They just call them the legitimate government of Ukraine. But in reality, they're just the Western-backed. Are
you there, Nick? All right. Well, it looks like Nick's having some technical difficulties. I'm probably going to call back in as soon as he can. And basically what he was more or less alluding to was just look at who's been put into posts and power as far as who the West is backing. They have Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool, yeah. The West is, if you look at who the head of security is for the now legitimate Western Ukrainian government, I believe it's a guy that's a very, basically a neo-Nazi head. It would be equivalent to naming our Secretary of Defense David Duke or something like that, where you have a guy that really wants to eradicate all Russianness out of the Ukraine. These guys are insane if they think they can possibly do that, and they want to prod Russia. I mean, this is what it's going to be used to do, just get a bigger thing going. All right. Well, he's probably cutting in and out.
Yeah, man. Hey, sorry, I'm here, but the situation is because my internet, I'm not sure why, but I'm running my laptop through my phone right now, and it's kind of in and out. It's kind of spotty, but it works here and there. Well, what's happening is people are calling me and it's interrupting my internet connection. Oh, so you're just gonna have to bear with me on this one tonight. I'm gonna try to tell everyone not to call me, but let's just hope that they listen. So yeah, I was listening to what you were saying. What were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything I've been researching has been telling me that, this is for real. There's now real trade implications. Like earlier today, found out that because they're advanced in rocketry more than we are even. We depend on them definitely for NASA's own ferrying of astronauts, but then again, also for a lot of our own military rockets, we depend on them to make the parts. Just like China makes a lot of our military parts. It's asinine at this point to get into these major, massive wars because supply chains. Where's the slack going to get picked up? Like, can we even fight? Is there even going to be a real fight? It seems to me like it's just going to be. How do you fight superpowers without it becoming genocidal on a global level? If that's what they want, but I mean that puts their own families at risk too. No matter how good their defenses are, they can get into anywhere now.
Yeah, and at the very root of this whole thing, I mean, first of all, yeah, they're ignoring democracy. They're ignoring all these humanitarian abuses that are going on over there in eastern Ukraine because the government is actively undermining this democratic action, whatever it was, a referendum, a vote. And there was even reports of them trying to physically interrupt these votes, and a guy got killed. There were shots fired. So at a polling station or whatever, and so I mean these are the people that we're supporting now. These people are firing shots, killing people at polling stations, and we're actively sending them billions and billions of dollars. We're sending them intelligence. We're sending them weaponry, and we're sending over people to train their people. I mean, what the hell are we doing?
Well, it's East Asia, man. We've been fighting them forever. We've been fighting them, and we'll always fight them. Somebody's got to win. That's all it is, and these proxies are just going to continue. I think they're just tired of the proxies. I think they want the big one more to be pushed because people are waking up. Look what's going on in Mexico right now. That's throwing a big wrench in the plans of the globalists. They want a Second Amendment now. They want to overthrow their government now. And do you think the cartels are going to be with the government and their corrupt little dealings, or do you think they'll shift sides with the people because that's their customer base? I mean, this is an interesting, massive shift that's going on there. I can only imagine what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, all we can hope for, man, is that the people that want independence from the West and independence from the East get it. But realistically looking at it, I mean, it's going to be these people are probably going to be in a pretty tough spot. I mean, they're a battlefield now, and they will be. It's such a strange situation they're in because you have the resources in the east, but they need to get to the west to port. So you're cutting country in half, and now what? Now there's this stalemate. Now there's a pipeline that's going to do what? Be shut? They're going to put a valve in the middle of it. I mean, the implications of this are huge, and I mean, the battle line's already drawn. I think only it's just going to take some crazy, colonel somewhere to order an attack on somebody, and then it'll be on. It won't even need to come from the top. It'll just be like some guy in a battalion that says, oh, we had shots fired on us. Yeah, I mean, and I've been worried about this whole time, man, is this false flag scenario, where it gets pinned on, whether it's Russia or China or somebody else. And then it reverses all this stuff that we've been talking about, man. But I'm just hoping that people have a more in-depth kind of understanding of what's been going on because, it's like, if we continue to fall for the same old tricks, man, and we don't learn from history, we don't learn from 9/11, and whether you believe 9/11 is the official story or you believe in an alternative story from the official story, just look at what it got us into, especially with Iraq, because Iraq is completely uncalled for, man. And Iraq was in no way responsible for 9/11. And yeah, maybe Saddam Hussein made some statements that maybe we didn't like, but aren't people allowed to make statements that we don't like? I mean, that's not justification for just bombing people, and we can't keep on making these same mistakes. Now, if the media was honest, they would show that the presence of these neo-Nazis in this new Ukrainian regime, but they don't show that. They don't show that a good 30 to 40% of the new Ukrainian government that's officially recognized by the West could possibly be controlled by fascists and neo-Nazis and racists. But they don't talk about that stuff. All they talk about is, the militias, the terrorists in the East are plaguing the place with problems. Unfortunately, I mean, from the reports I've been seeing, most of the people that are being killed right now are the pro-Eastern protesters. I mean, they're getting killed by the dozens over there. And
and not only that, but they're when you start using tactics that the British used on the American colonists, when you lock people into buildings they're trying to occupy and set them on fire, that breaks more than a Geneva Code. That's more or less the most heinous way you can possibly kill somebody. It's horribly painful, even if the smoke inhalation gets them. And it's dehumanizing, man, to just cook them in there like in an oven. So what these guys are doing is taking it to a barbaric level. It's similar to the butcher squads that were in Syria that were basically hacking people apart with machetes. And they're unarmed, starving, just civilians, just to spread terror. That's all it is. Terror. It's just feeding fear. And it's the only control mechanism that'll work on large groups of people. Because greed's not working anymore. The consumer lifestyle only lasts as long as you have free or cheap goods. And the cheap goods are disappearing now. So now you have to use fear.
Well, there's cheap goods, but they're very, very, I'm talking about quality-wise, they're cheap, you know? They're not affordable good, they're not good quality stuff that's affordable. No, we don't have that anymore. You want something good quality, you want to get a Bose system, which is, I think Bose is even made in China now. If you want to get a Bose sound system, you're looking at $1,000 bill, you know? You can't get a really good, nice quality, equipment or furniture or whatever it is that people need at a fair price, because the inflation runs rampant. So everything that we're getting nowadays, most of the stuff that people are using and buying is this very, very cheaply made crap stuff that's imported from all these countries where they have borderline slave labor or direct slave labor. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that most people are consuming right now, and that's not good quality, low price goods. It's crap, and you're paying too much for it, if you ask me, because it breaks down in no time, you know. And
where's the money going in the middle? Because I was seeing that a pair of shoes Nike would sell for $100 cost them 50 cents to manufacture. That leaves $99.50 in profit. And what is the laborer getting? About $1.20 a day. So this is slave labor. It's global. It's worldwide. You can tie this into the incidents with Boko Haram in Nigeria, where they will kidnap these girls, and some will be brides, and many will probably end up in sweatshops. And this is a feeding of our global consumerism culture. That's all it is. It comes at a horrible price. The people in the West don't get it. The people in the East live with it, and this is where the conflict and the war and the ideological war comes into play. It's self-determination versus what's really overwhelming tyrannical technocracy. I mean, are we going to allow ourselves to do that? We'll be in the factories doing these slave labor jobs soon enough if you don't have an advanced degree.
Yeah, and then you're going to see a real minimum wage come into play, where you're going to say, okay, well, you're just going to get these coupons. I mean, I was watching an old movie last night on one of these, what's that one? I forget what it is, but all they play is old movies.
Turner Classic Movies?
Yeah. And so it was a French film or whatever, and they were talking about gasoline coupons, basically gasoline stamps. And we got to remember, man, this stuff wasn't that long ago when they started rationing foods and doing all this kind of stuff. And the only reason they didn't do that much in Vietnam was because that's when Nixon went ahead and completely delinked the currency from any kind of tangible assets. So they were able to just print it out of thin, and then that's when you see everything just get in huge trouble after the 70s, and all this financial crisis and everybody becoming poor, and then the few people becoming extremely rich.
The doozy of the year was 72-73, and that's when Nixon spearheaded both the absolution of the gold standard and then also of universal single-payer health care, where you could go to a doctor and pay him $50 in cash and he took care of you. You know what I mean? Ron Paul always says that if you look back in the day, you would be able to afford going to college working part-time. Could you possibly think about doing that now without taking out a loan? Unless you're getting grants and you're getting scholarships, you're not going to be able to pay for college on a part-time job unless you're pushing something illegal on the side. I don't know what. But I mean, that's just where it is now. And the old ways are, it's not like we couldn't get back to that because there's just so many people now. It's that there's so many middlemen now. That's the problem.
Yeah, man, and honestly, like you were saying, if I would prefer to see somebody doing side jobs, quote unquote, to pay for their college than to see them getting in these crazy student debt situations, because that's like another huge problem. Yeah, it's another huge problem that we're gonna face for the foreseeable. And it's just another way of them just putting us under, man. This whole financial system, this whole bureaucracy, the whole republic, the whole government, everything about it is like completely regressive. The justice system, I mean, you name it, man. Like, if you have money, you can get out of almost any situation. You can get away with a lot of things.
Sure.
And if you don't, you're pretty much done. Like, if you can't afford to pay your registration for your car or get insurance, I know here in California, like, there was a time when I didn't have insurance for a little while, and they sent me a letter getting ready to suspend my license, just because I didn't have the money to pay for insurance. I mean, it's a completely regressive system, and anybody that doesn't have money gets screwed, and anyone with money rides through pretty easily.
Right. I mean, it's been that way always. It's always been that way. Now, the problem is that people are tired of it now because we understand that the people that really just absconded the natural resources of the earth with really no more of a claim on it than me and you. We don't need them anymore. We don't need them. Everything being open source with free information, now the only thing left is we have to have resource allocation to everyone, and we can't have a massive world central government to do that. That needs to be done on an individual community level, and trade needs to happen. It can't be an inventory of everything, and then some global technocratic elite decides what happens, because I don't care how smart they are, they don't know what's best for the whole world as a whole. You have to have a huge consensus to get that. And even if these guys are, super scientists and such that are geniuses, give me 1,000 normal men and they'll come up with something over one of these super genius guys, and how many billions of people are there. So everybody's voice needs to be included. I think we've brought it up before. We don't have enough representation at all. 550 people to represent 330 million, that's ridiculous. That should be like 100 or 1,000 times that many.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you any more on that, because it's like, the middleman in the situation, which is always the government, that's where the problem always happens, because you have the population, and then some people, there's a ranging scale of income and all these other variations and other factors and stuff, and then you have what people expect to get back if they're putting this money into the system. Nobody in their right mind puts money into something knowing that that money is going to all it's going to do is screw them.
But it's at the point of a gun.
Exactly. So nobody really wants to be in this social contract. It's just that it's such a normalcy of society that everybody kind of just agrees with doing these things. Even though a lot of people can complain about taxes, everyone knows that tax day is like the most dreaded day of the year and all that stuff. And everybody knows that it sucks, and everybody knows that the money is being wasted. But at the same time, there's not that many people actually tactfully avoiding this stuff and trying to avoid these taxes, because it's just so much of the normalcy of society that you just don't step outside of that that construct, really.
And IRS agents don't pay tax, and that's because if they tried to get them to pay it, they would be able to defeat it in court. Anybody who's a tax specialist doesn't pay any taxes on their income because they could defeat it in court. They don't want to blow it over and out to everybody that it could be beaten, but you have to know how to do it. And the people that know how, they're not just going to go out and give that to everybody. You need to pay for that. So do you think the wealthy pay income tax, honestly? They don't. Anything that they don't shelter, anything they need just for spending cash, they're not going to pay any tax. At most 15%, maybe, on a capital gain. But that would have to be proven in some way. I mean, it's more or less the people that can't get representation. They could never afford a guy who's a tax expert to make them not pay their income tax. And that's the whole catch-22, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's how we know that this thing is like completely regressive, you know. So yeah, if you got the money to play, if you're General Electric, who employs 1,000 people in their tax department,
right?
You saw what they did in was it 2013, 2012, one of these years. They made like almost $6 billion in profits, and they got like a $3 billion return in their taxes because they exploited all these loopholes, all these green rebates, all these carbon taxes, and all these things. And you know, they basically they're the extreme couponers of corporate greed, basically.
Well, they're the biggest company in the world.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the biggest companies, so you know, they're able to employ these crazy schemes to get these taxes. And let's face it, it benefits them. They don't pay any taxes, and the refund they got more than it pays for these 1,000 employees. So I mean,
they were tax write-offs too.
Yeah, so in the end, it's technically corporate welfare, and that's what kills me the most when I see these people out there protesting welfare and saying that we got to stop immigration and stuff. I mean, yeah, there is big time issues with the welfare state too, and definitely with Obamacare. But the real issue out there, I mean, the real culprit that we should be addressing first is this whole corporate pyramid scheme, and really talking about that and the banking scheme and the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. I mean, that's at the core of the issue. I mean, immigration and all that stuff, I don't see it as a problem. Some people may, and that's their opinion, but that is like a secondary issue that people are going to should be like blaming on the economy. I mean, we got a real issue here, and people are blaming on this superficial stuff that doesn't really mean anything. And it's so convenient for the political establishment, because then they don't got people blaming them. Then they can just blame everybody else. And it's exactly what Hitler did over in Germany, where he was able to say, "Hey, look, the economy sucks. I'm going to fix it. The Jews are the reason why it's messed up. Here's our equation to make everything better." And that's exactly what he did, and it's taking place in Europe. We see it in Ukraine with the racism. I just saw an article today that showed that Jews are fleeing France at the fastest rate ever because of the increased racism, because these people are misdirecting their anger. They're misdirecting all of this energy at the superficial reasons.
Well, divide and conquer works.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the simple solution. Anytime you feel anger towards any other subgroup, realize you've been programmed to think that. Now be angry at the people that made you think that. And start to think about it that way, that everything in your life you've been directed a certain way, and you've been programmed to be this way. So stop it, and then be angry at the programmers. I don't know if you saw today earlier that something amazing came out, which was Iran unveiled that their copied drone. You remember the drone that crashed there? They copied it, man. They have their own. It's drones worldwide now. So if you think it was anything was fishy about the fact that drone went down, and now they have their own drones against their own populace, think again. They're all in concert. This is a big stage. You're an actor in it whether you want to be or not, and it's whatever role you play is up to you. But these dudes are all in cahoots, man. Once the drones are up everywhere, it's over. No M16 is going to do anything. No AR-15, no sniper rifle. It's over.
Yeah, exactly, man. And all right, I'm going to go ahead and just start this story here that I got from my experience today. You met Derek Bros up in LA, right?
Yeah.
And he's down here in Chula Vista. And apparently, about a block away from where I grew up, and about 2.5 blocks away from where I'm at now, there's this dude down there with this organization called Bitcoin Kinetics, and these guys are like revolutionizing the whole game, dude. And I'm gonna get a bit into it right now, but Derek is staying over at his place, and me and my buddy went over there today, and we're talking with these guys because, we haven't talked much about Bitcoin on this program because we just don't know that much about it. And I want to get more into it pretty soon in the next couple shows and stuff, because after what I learned today, it's pretty crazy. But basically, I'm talking with this guy, and you know how we talked about how we can have technology start to replace government? and how we can vote from our phones and vote from our computers, and then basically the Congress, the Senate, the president is replaced by algorithms and stuff like that.
Yes.
These guys are actually doing that, dude, and they're like really, really close to being at that point. And they literally live a few blocks away from my house, and I never even knew they were there until Derek knew the guy, and he was like, "Man, I got another friend in Chula Vista." I didn't know what to expect when I got there, but I went over there, and I was just blown the hell away, dude. I mean, not only is this technology going to do away with the Fed, it's going to do away with the banks. It's also going to do away with government very, very soon, man. And I think the future now is starting to look very bright. And this technology, this is the stuff they're using now to protect nukes. These codes and these rhythms. This is like the most cutting edge. No one can crack this stuff. And if they do, it doesn't matter because there's 1 million people working on these codes and they can fix it if it ever gets cracked, you know?
Yes, I mean, it's getting to the point now where but the problem is, who's going to do the initial programming? And how will it be used to benefit? And will there be markers for a global robotic peacekeeping force inside of the elites, like a chip they put into themselves in a kind of a reverse psychology, and then the robots won't attack them and they'll follow their commands. There's so many different weird things they can use from a technocratic level that will pull the wool over our eyes. So we got to be careful. There's got to be a big civilian influx, and maybe it should be 100% even civilian that does the initial source code, so that it cannot be perverted and put any backdoors or other, directives in there that can be used to screw us over. Because we maybe do need to get government out by giving it over to the hive mind that'll make something like a resource-based economy that everyone loved to learn about in Zeitgeist and other movies, where everything would be, distributed efficiently and effectively, and everybody would basically partake in the fruits of the earth and the labor of machines. That's the whole goal.
And the resource economy is just like a small underlying factor when it comes to what will be possible afterwards. We're not talking about, we're not going to dictate. We're not talking about having a dictator type economy where it has to be a certain way. I mean, what we've been talking about on this show is building our way up, building our way out from the community level to provide for the community, the people that need it. The essential things that we need to live, and especially like with education and food for people and things like that, to the point where that becomes an afterthought, and then everything we're focused on is like completely creative. We're not doing these drone jobs anymore. We're not working at McDonald's and these type of things anymore. Machines can do all that work. And that's perfectly, in my opinion, that's perfectly fine. Because that allows everybody else to do like the most creative and just go in a direction that they choose, and maybe they pursue science, maybe they pursue mathematics, maybe they pursue permaculture, maybe they pursue art or music or whatever. And everything is everything that you essentially need to survive is taken care of by the community. I mean, think of the amount of potential that we would unlock if we ever got to that point.
Yeah, and we know already that with current technology and about $50,000 down, you can build from scratch a house that will never need the grid and can make water. And with water and power, you can plant crops, right? You just need a little bit of land around you, and you can even grow inside a lot of stuff. And you can be probably 80 to 90% self-sufficient with these new designs. So we got that going for us. There's not going to be really a way to stop the innovation from hitting the market, but the problem will be the economic system will leave many people broke soon. And there's going to be all these bubbles that burst. There'll be student loan bubbles where creditors will literally start to threaten the parents of students with coming to collect their assets because their kids can't get jobs. And us as a society, we have to defend each other from these predatory corporations that are going to start this mad dash for our cash and leave everybody a serf. And while everybody still has capital and even everybody still has some power, we need to pass some major bills through that are going to guarantee us the basic necessities of life. Otherwise, it's going to be dog eat dog soon, and it's going to be really, really rough here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's this whole point of this whole counter movement, is kind of this rejection and this just detestment of what the hell is going on right now. And to me, it seems like it's a tide that's been rising all over the world. I mean, every country is having their beef. Even this whole thing with Ukraine, despite that it's been co-opted by the West and the East. For instance, with that the interview with that guy that I read earlier today, they just want to be free, man. That's all they want. They want self-determination. That's basically what everybody wants. That's the one thing that we can really agree on. We can agree on really two things. People want to be free, they want to be self-determinative, and that they can agree to disagree on basically anything else. I mean that's the real thing that we could really agree on. You know, we want to be free and that we want to be able to disagree with anybody else if we want to. But, you know, the problem is that these guys that are at the very helm of this thing, at the very top of the system, you know, whatever we want to, whether it's a monetary system or the corporate system or the government or whatever, even though it's kind of all the same thing, the people that are at the top, they're like trying to game this whole system, and they're using all the science and all the psychology and all the economic ways to bend this system to that it fills their pockets up. And we see it. It's right there in the graph. So if you look at the wealth inequality, I mean, you see it. It's right there. I mean, the wealth of the very, very rich are increasing exponentially, and the people that are at the bottom, 90% are completely stagnant.
And that wealth getting poor. And that wealth is going to expound exponentially forever. There's only going to be leaps and bounds up the ladder, because it doesn't matter how risky these guys invest. They divest everything over such a wide spectrum that no matter what, they're making 10, 12, 15, 20% minimum. When there's, you know, big time firms like BlackRock that average 25%, and you have a guy with $1 billion, he's making $250 a year doing nothing. And that's huge. He'll never spend that. He can't do it. And he's not paying taxes. That's all being offshored, except for whatever he's investing in this country, and that's probably farms and other natural stuff like that, and fracking rights. But,
or his little, you know, his expendable income, you know, his little $20 million to, you know, spend on his little vacation and his hotel rooms and his rent and all that stuff. Yeah, $20 million. Yeah, he might get taxed on $20 million, but when you're at $20 billion, that's nothing.
I mean, that's the game. And when they say the first trillionaire will be here by 2045, that's a joke. There's already trust funds they know of with north of 500 trillion. There's accounts that have, I don't know, quadrillions in them that have all kinds of weird names attached to them, and you can Google and look that stuff up if you're really interested. But it's a shell game. That's all it is. It's just numbers. We're controlled by numbers. They take your labor and they quantify it, and then you think it's monetized, but really it's their game. And the barter system on a community level, it's going to be a weird barter because it's going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be open source. We're going to get it to where we're going to have Internet 2.0 soon, and that's a serverless Internet. I don't know if you've heard of that, Nick, but it's using quantum tech and Tesla's theory that energy can be moved through light and mass, and it's all around us, so you don't need servers. We could actually have a completely wireless Internet. Which is just mind-blowing.
This guy, the guy was telling me today, man, is that they're building these basically they're like LED boards, and this is like basically wireless fiber optic technology, dude, where it's just light. You're encoding all this communication within light, dude. And imagine, and you know, light is as far as we know, is the fastest thing that we can, you know, light speed is the fastest thing in the universe as far as we know. And, we're talking about, just like you were saying, we're replacing wireless internet, as we know it now with this light speed stuff, dude, where it's like, there's almost unlimited bandwidth, you know what I'm saying? And you're never gonna get bogged down. The more you use it, and the stuff you were talking about, the Internet 2.0, from what I've read, is like the more you're using, the faster it goes.
Yep. I mean, because it pushes everything along, kind of like imagine there was like a tube and more water's in it, more pressure. It's something like that. And it's fascinating if this stuff can be unleashed for us to use, and not just these elites. I know there's a rift. There has got to be a rift right now in the people that run things. Otherwise, we'd all be doomed right now. Some of them have got to be thinking that the way they've been going about it with people as, you know, this useless eater class and stuff like that is the wrong way to go about it. We need a huge base. We need 10 billion people so that humanity can have these major mutations and evolve. I'm not talking about like people coming out looking different. I'm talking about major consciousness evolutions where so many people come up with new ideas, it changes everything in our whole spectrum of thinking. The more people, the better, provided we can feed them. And we don't need Monsanto to do it, but we all just need to have farms and solar panels so we can just do it for ourselves. And we'll have another food supply as a backup, but we need to feed ourselves at least half of our food.
Yeah, and I mean, the real strength of humanity comes from our numbers, man. So, Einstein was just a product of numbers. Einstein, out of however many people have been born on this earth to that day, he happened to be the guy that was born with these certain traits at a certain time, at a certain place, where he ended up being able to do what he did. Just like, what's his name? The other crazy scientist that's hugely genius. I forget his name. The guy in the wheelchair. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, dude. I mean, same thing with that guy. I mean, it's just
right.
I mean, look at him. He's got a genetic mutation which provides, he gets some kind of physical limitations and stuff like that. But his brain developed like crazy, and he's extremely, extremely smart. And
exactly.
That's where humanity, that's where our numbers, our power, our strength, and our intelligence comes from, is from these numbers. And over time, there's these genetic mutations, and sometimes you're going to have a person that's going to have a bunch of problems, and sometimes you're going to have a person that's going to be extremely, extremely smart, like Tesla or like Einstein or whatever. And now the point where where these elites are trying to go to now is where they want to start kind of taking a hand in nature, and they want to start genetically engineering and trying to create these, eugenic projects where they try to create these extremely, extremely smart people and create these extreme athletes and things like that.
And that's okay, but we need to go on both fronts. You can't just say, hey, we're at the top of the food chain. We're the intellectual giants. We have all the resources. We have the family bloodlines, the backing, and everything else. And we're going to make all the decisions and run our own lines and genetically engineer super soldiers, super scientists, you name it. Here's the thing. It's still just a marginalized centralization of everything, including intellectual property and ideas. And it's not a big enough base. And if we're looking off this world, if we're not truly stuck here, if we can get off, if we could develop enough tech to go colonize things, we have to have a lot of people to do that. We need to come up with a lot of off-the-wall ideas, and they're not going to be able to do it by themselves. So if they're trying to set up some utopia they're stuck on, that's what they're doing. But it's going to be an awful utopia for them. I mean, would you want to be stuck with a bunch of guys like that if you were a normal guy and you just got born into that family? How many rifts they're going to be? I mean, it's insane. So let nature take its course. Let people fend for themselves and provide the support for them. Like with Russia's community gardening and dachas, let's emulate that. Why don't we have those programs available? We have plenty of land sitting around.
Yeah, and like the more I think about it, man, the more that I've met some very brilliant people in the past few days, and I still want to jump into that before we run out of time. But the more I hear people and talk to people, and go to these events and network with these thinkers and stuff like that, I'm not really worried, man, because like you were saying, who wants to be in that quote unquote utopia situation? Nobody really, because it's going to suck. Because you're going to have a bunch of people that are doing the same exact thing. They're all just parasites, and without us, if they're parasites without us, they're really nothing. Because once you kill the host, then you're done. Yeah, they may try to go and move off and do some other things and have a robot army and all this stuff, but they're gonna be so depressed and so tired of everything that they're gonna end up killing each other off just because they're bored. And that's fine for them. But here's the thing. When people oppress life, when they oppress evolution, when they oppress nature, guess what? Nature always finds a way to beat them. And I think that's that's kind of this radio show right now is kind of a product of that. We are here because things are effed up and we're trying to do something about it. And as long as life itself or evolution exists, which I'm pretty sure is pretty much universal throughout the whole universe, the struggle between bad and good, the good is always going to come out on top. And then there's always just this cycle that goes on where, okay, everything's good, and then there's going to be a time where people get complacent, and then people let it slip, and then psychopaths come to power, and then the people put it back into check. You know what I mean? And we're at that kind of like that boiling point right now where we're getting ready in the coming years to put these idiots in check. And it's not that we're so powerful. It's just that they've built this whole system, this whole dream that these idiots have, these oligarchs and all this stuff. It's by design. It's going to fail. You know, it's going to fail because it's going to be rife with bureaucracy, corruption, special interests, and all these other things that are causing us to decay as a whole. And they've built their entire way of life around these things, and they're going to be worse off than the poor people, because at least the poor people already know how to deal with having nothing.
Right, and looking at it from a kind of galactic perspective, if we truly were some kind of genetic engineering experiment or some kind of weird servitor race or something like that, isn't our strength our diversity, and wouldn't that preclude needing the numbers and a bunch of people and ideas and voices? That's our strength. I mean, we're pretty weak physically. If you look at us, there's lots of animals on Earth that can just pretty much have their way with us. We're not a master of this world by any means, except that we can use a variety of talents to get things done. And every single culture on Earth has contributed to where we are today. So to try to make a hegemony, a really, truly all-encompassing one-world hegemony where culture will be abolished and religion and all the things that differentiate us, we're going to lose any spark of strength we had, and we'll be ripe to be just completely taken over by anything and everything that can. And maybe that is the whole goal. And it's our job to fight it if we want to have any kind of life, especially for people with kids that are listening. I mean, that's, to me, the main thing. These kids are growing up and they're never going to have a private moment in their life. And what's that going to do to the human spirit?
Yeah, it's a huge chilling effect. It's a dampening effect. You know, and people won't be able to voice their true opinions because they're worried that someone's always going to be listening, and that is not right, and it's going to be detrimental to the future of innovation and entrepreneurialism, ideas, and and let's face it, a lot of things are illegal. And a lot of things that are illegal have in the past have led to, better things. Like, I mean, there was a time when science was basically considered illegal by the church and by the Pope and all these things. And I mean, there's these old guys from the Renaissance that were persecuted by the church just because they were scientists and things like that. And at the time that was illegal. So yeah, even with the illegal stuff, I think humanity is just capable of this evolutionary process, man. And the more you hurt somebody, the more ideas they come up with, the more ways they figure out to subvert you. And humanity as a whole being oppressed, man, and we're seeing it rage worldwide. I mean, how many countries have had revolution in the last 2 years? Albeit, yeah, maybe the revolutions weren't exactly successful, but you can't deny that there's that feeling there that people are just done with it. And it's because we're evolving, and we're tired of being oppressed. We're sick of oligarchy. We're sick of this system that's been, I mean, how long have we been in this kind of governed, serf and oligarch system where it's been like a ruling class and a bunch of poor people since the days of Mesopotamia, since the days when government was invented. It's been this way. And I think we've finally gotten tired enough of it to where we're trying to throw it off.
And maybe in some perverse way it was necessary because we hadn't gotten to the point where we're at now. But as we love to say, the internet changed it all because the free flow of information meant I can watch things anywhere in the world and learn anything I want, anytime. And now I understand that the wool is being pulled over my eyes forever. And we have to change it because the way me and you are living, it's affecting the whole world. And, it's making it worse every single day. So we have to be part of the change because we can convince people that we have a cultural similarity to that are our constituents. Maybe they don't want to give in to the public will, but if enough young people come up with different mindsets to change things through their own power and their own channels and their influence, that's how things will change, and that's how you get these culture shifts. And I think we're on the verge of that now, and it's because everybody knows that everything they were taught is a lie. They taught their kids that. Their kids know they're being lied to hardcore in school now, and they can check it while they're at school. And it's destroying the whole carefully laid out plans that was to indoctrinate everyone and have this giant, robot worker culture. That it's breaking up now, and the economy is breaking up now, but the innovation's taking over.
Yeah, man, and by all signs pointing, all things considered, we're moving into this robotic society where the military is going to be run by drones. Almost all the workforce is going to be run by robotics. The cops are going to be these RoboCop things. I mean, every part of our life is being invaded by this. And now we're in this fork in the road, I think, at this point, where it's like there's 85 dudes controlling half the wealth of basically the world. And if these same 85 people end up in control of all these robots and all these drones and all these computers and all these things, then we're done. We're completely doomed. But if we're able to get it to the point where instead of it being owned by this oligarchy class, where it's owned collectively by individuals, by communities, and by grassroots organizing situations, and cooperatively owned businesses, worker-owned businesses, and things like that, then we'll set the stage. I'm not to say that there's not still going to be an entrepreneurial class, where there are still rich people, but we're not going to see this crazy, insane thing where we got trillionaires almost, billionaires on paper, trillionaires behind the scenes, and then you got people that are just completely flat broke living off of $1 a day. We're not going to see that if we're able to transition into this thing where we have, we do have technology, we do have robotics, we do have computerization of a lot of things, but all of those things are going to benefit the people and not just going to benefit these very, very few people that have been able to game the system and capitalize on every single one of our backs. And, the way I see it is if we can get to this point, we're going to be able to change the whole paradigm.
Yep. We have to make sure that before there's this general condensation, brought about on the economy and everybody just starts losing jobs one by one, that we have social contracts in place to guarantee us certain things like education, healthcare, and all that, so that we're not left out in the dust, and that we can, everybody can have the American dream, so to speak, and attempt to climb up the societal ladder.
Yeah, and I guess that's like kind of the whole overall point of all this activism and spreading this information and stuff. Because like I said earlier, we are a product of the oppressed system, the oppressed people. And if everything was nice and rosy, do you think we would have this show? No, because we wouldn't have anything to talk about, because everything would be good for everybody. Right. And the reason we have this show is because we are a product of this evolution, and we are a product of being oppressed. And so we have an obligation to come out against it. And not only for everybody else, but let's face it, it's also for our own self-preservation, because we don't want to be living in this corrupt place where the Fed controls everything and all this globalist, corporate scheming, totally constricts all the local marketplaces, and no small businessmen, no entrepreneurs can do business. I mean, that hurts everybody. And if we're forced into this corporate scheme where everything's McDonaldized and Walmart's and all this stuff, and then it's all robotically run and all the manufacturing and all that stuff, and we continue on the same path, man, I mean, it's really not a good situation for anybody. And I think that's why it's not going to happen, because people sooner or later will realize that it's happening, and they're realizing that they're getting, the short end of the deal. And it's going to come about one way or another, man. And there's going to be this renaissance because it's needed, and it's just got to happen out of preservation of life, man. And if we aren't able to take control of things, a nuclear war could start eventually. World War III could become a nuclear war, and then all life does get wiped out. I mean, it's out of our own, natural self-preservation instinct that life has. All forms of life have it, and that's why anything that's alive on the earth today has this instinct to survive. And Yep. Sooner or later, we're gonna get this just total feeling around the world of all the people. And like I said, man, I think we're almost there, because it's happening in a lot of countries right now. And we may be a little bit behind here because we're on this financial bubble where we are the world's reserve currency. We do have the biggest military, so keep it all in place for now. So the rude awakening just hasn't come here. But when it does, I think the people will know how to survive, and they're going to move into these ideas that are going to help us move forward as a whole, as life on Earth.
Right. It's going to be some kind of, we're going to have to come to some kind of agreement with China as a country, and the people are going to have to understand that the government owes them so much money they could never pay it back, that they're more or less selling off a lot of infrastructure to them and allowing them to buy it up at cheap rates. And it's going to be a merging of cultures to avoid a world war with them. And Russia, I mean, we're hoping we just kind of beat them back into submission, but it seems to me like this is the play going on. It's just a crazy, crazy time right now. I think everybody's kind of aware of a lot of things going on, a lot of changes that are going to be made, and some kind of crazy event that'll make it kind of all seem natural that it's happening this way. And we're going to look for the comfort of a all-encompassing power, whatever that power may be.
Yeah, and that's what we have to, be very careful about, because, right. Like you were saying earlier about this whole thing where these guys are trying to just globalize not only economically but with government, and like this whole thing with the European Union, where the European Union kind of like supersedes most of these like autonomous decisions by the individual countries and stuff like that. I mean, the EU is kind of like the preamble, the experiment to say, okay, how are we going to try to implement this whole thing globally? And, the thing is that it's already global because these corporations don't have any borders. They're extracting resources. They're extracting the monetary, income of all the people in almost every country as we speak. So, I mean, the globalization is already here. It already hit. And that's actually one of the things that I spoke about at the United We Stand festival was the TPP and this whole trade agreement and all this thing. Which for now it's kind of on the rocks. It's kind of on the chill for now. But believe it's going to be. They're going to try to sneak it back in. Under our noses.
They can't push it through in a lot of countries. Like Peru's not going for the Monsanto being allowed back in. The people aren't having that. And there's a lot of countries that aren't okay with the lowering of their living standards and their cultural norms being abolished for corporate entities. Who cares about these giant things? People got to understand that the key to freedom in the world, break up massive multinationals, just break them up. They have to be local. They have to be small. Secondly, government's gone. It needs to be done by like algorithms, and we need to transition to that. These important decisions need to be made scientifically and not emotionally, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and I mean the politicians are by no means are these people scientists, or are they mathematicians? Do they know anything?
They're
all
lobbyists.
They know, yeah, they're just basically lobbyists that get elected. Whoever has the most money gets elected. And then obviously, being that you have to get the most money to get elected, then you become beholden to anyone that gave you money, in a large amount. And almost anybody that gives money in large amounts is also giving money to almost every other, in one way or another, giving money to all these other congressmen and influencing other sides of the government, So then you have this monopoly on lobbying. And I mean, think of the barrier of entry. If we wanted to make a lobby, you and me, if we wanted to make a public lobby to say, hey, we want to influence the government to do these things for the people or whatever. Think of our barriers of entry. How much money we would have to raise, and we'd have to hire these very, very expensive lobbyists to go up and try to work with these politicians.
But it can be done in an easier way than that, and that is getting things pushed through, like vote on your phone, making things happen, like having police be disarmed of lethal weapons and having to have cameras on them. These are things we could push through. They need to come to the consciousness of people as just obvious and logical. And let's get things going small, piece by piece, and take it back from them. Every time they push a new law through for us, we'll push a new restriction on them to where it's stalemated. We've lost that ability because people don't understand the power they have collectively. Everybody's going to work and they're a drone. And the organization started on Saturday.
Yeah, man. I think it's a rising tide, and it's changing. I saw it at the United We Stand Fest, man. The people were there, and it was just the vibe is right. The direction was good. Everybody seems to be on the same page that I met, man. I was chilling with Capadonna from Wu-Tang and Immortal Technique and stuff, and these guys are like, we're kind of all on the same page, man. And believe it or not, dude, like from the ground up, and I think we're very close to this time, man. The new renaissance is here.
Through the stereo, yo, here we go through the stereo.